Okay, some may be wondering why in the world have I pulled out Scottsdale, Arizona? That's what I named this machine, Scottsdale, Arizona. Don't ask me why, it just came up with that name and I've decided to name this machine that. If you remember, Scottsdale, Arizona originally had that 14 HP Kawasaki in it. Scottsdale, Arizona has no obstructions in the front end. It's been currently wired for a Briggs & Stratton, but that's easy enough to modify or just bypass for right now. Overall, this is actually a somewhat complete machine minus the deck. It does currently have a belt on it. I do have the drive for it. I do have the proper tank for it. And this machine actually has a fairly decent transaxle. The deck that was on it whenever I got it was completely shot, but they did actually have everything hooked up correctly to that 14 horsepower Kawasaki, except for some of the wiring. They had a push button start, where was it? Somewhere on the dash. I can't quite remember where it was now. I have since removed it. I believe it was, actually did not remove it. It's right here. That was the original push button start, but there was no issues with the solenoid. They could have actually wired this up to start that Kawasaki without the push button start, but they didn't. No big deal. I'm not worrying about that at the moment. I care less. So you're thinking, why did I pull it out and why am I talking about the Kawasaki? Let's go see. So the Kawasaki is currently mounted in my engine test stand. It is all hooked up. It will actually start right up and run. But there's one problem. As you can see, there's no exhaust. The exhaust will not fit mounted in this frame. I was considering modifying this frame, but how many engines will I be doing that are set up like this? Probably not many. I'd rather keep this the way it is to primarily do Kohlers and Briggs & Stratton engines, singles and twins. The rare occasion I'll get a Kawasaki, I can just run it without the exhaust. These engines are also getting quite rare, so finding another Kawasaki that's actually viable to put back together is probably very rare as well. So, since Scottsdale, Arizona originally had this engine and the exhaust was in place in that chassis, I'm going to be taking this engine out of the engine test stand. The engine, all the alligator clip wires, the battery are all going to go in Scottsdale, Arizona, including the exhaust. So I'll be able to properly test this engine in that chassis. Will I hook the drive up? Probably not. I really have no use for this engine. If I do put that chassis back together, I'll probably put a Briggs & Stratton in it. And actually, I do have a Briggs & Stratton I could put in that chassis. And that machine could actually be a fairly decent backup machine for whenever I need it. So that might be its future setup. Put a Briggs back in it and have it as a backup machine. But for the moment, it's going to be an engine test stand. So the plan is I'll have everything jerry-rigged to power. The carb solenoid to shut it off, and to start it I probably will hook up the ignition switch. So I do want to be able to start it by the key, and I want to be able to shut it off by the key. But other than that, I don't really care. I can jerry rig the carb solenoid, just hook it straight up to the battery at the back, run a wire, or see if there's a power source under the hood that I can take off of. I don't really want to mess up too much of that harness. I will have to do the same bypass I did on here, connecting the two red wires together. That's not a big deal. I got lots of extra wire kicking around, so it wouldn't take much to wire up Scottsdale, Arizona to run this engine. When they originally had this engine in that chassis, they had it jerry-rigged anyways. They had a wire going to the starter. They had the charging system just plugged in. They had the kill wire just plugged in. It was really jerry-rigged quite a bit. So it's not too big of a deal. I just don't want to modify that harness again, since, like I said, it is set up to run a Briggs & Stratton currently. So that's the plan for as of right now, and potentially the future plans for this chassis to put a Briggs & Stratton back in it. But I do have one other engine I do need to test in this chassis. I have a Subaru V-twin that also has an exhaust, and this definitely will not fit in my engine test stand. So this engine here is next after the Kawasaki, and then I can move on to some Kohlers. I got a Kohler down there, I have a Kohler right there, and that's probably the future engine for Scottsdale, Arizona right there. That's a 14 or 15 horsepower Briggs. So that one there would actually be a perfect fit for that machine for the most part, if it's just going to be a yard tractor. So, and actually I do have a deck for Scottsdale, Arizona, but it's pretty well shot. It's probably not worthwhile to put it on. It's a Murray deck, but Scotts and Murray share a lot of parts, just like Ford New Holland and Toro share a lot of parts. So this is what I'm going to be working on next. I'm actually going to get that engine mounted in here right now with the exhaust in place. This tank will work for now. I do have the correct tank for this. It has been patched. It's been patched for quite some time now. So it will be going back on in the future. But this one right here, I believe that's off of Noma, will work for now. As long as it does have a fuel shut off. So that's all I really care about. So anyways, I'm going to get these tires pumped up, get this cleaned up a little bit, do the under dash wiring modification. The solenoid was actually still good in this machine. Don't know if it still is. And then get the solenoid wire ran out for the starter like I did on the engine test stand. And get this ready to be a temporary engine test stand. So I'll talk to them later. Please keep it redneck like always, and please subscribe and comment.